Hi, welcome to our SCOM 260 Summer 2017 group presentation. My name is Rose McGrory.
I'm Joe Morrison.
And I'm Alyssa Maitner.
And we are going to present about public relations in the science fields, or science communications. And so public relations in science, technology, engineering, and math, which is commonly called STEM, is often referred to as science communications. It is a growing field as more and more scientists and science organizations seek to communicate with the public. And it focuses on presenting science-related topics to non-experts by using both education and engagement. And so we're going to talk about who the publics are, the methods that science communications experts use to share science with the publics, and private firms and government agencies. And so science communications distills, demystifies, illuminates, and disseminates complex knowledge across disciplinary boundaries and cultural divides. And this comes from the science communications firm at science-communications.com. So publics in science communications are divided into three categories: students, lay people, and public officials. Students range from kindergarten through high school, so about 4 to 17 years old. And in some cases, undergraduate students who are not engaged in research may also be included as students. Science communications for students takes place in both formal and informal settings. An example of a formal setting would be a school where the communicators are teachers who have been trained to teach science to the students. And informal settings would include science museums, events such as science fairs, programs, or camps, and science competitions. And the purpose of communicating science with students is to educate them and to inspire interest in the STEM fields. Lay people are people who have basic or no formal education in science, and they also have no career ties with STEM, so they can't be scientists, they can't be engineers, they can't work for a science or engineering company. And they may have a variety of interest and knowledge in STEM. They may have taken science classes through high school and never done anything in STEM since then. They may be very interested, or they may not be interested at all. And the purpose of communicating with these people is to share useful information and to shape public opinions. For example, if somebody is looking to buy a house on a barrier island, then they should know that a hurricane could come and wipe away the entire island, and they would waste all of that money into the investment. It also gives them information about new medical treatments or technological advances. And it shapes public opinions about issues such as the pipeline to carry oil across the continent, or to educate people about the need for renewable energy. And public officials are the people who make policy, and so scientists want to communicate to them in order to shape public policy or educate them about environmental issues. For example, fracking, which is a way of taking natural gas or oil from certain rock types, or emissions from a power plant. They also make medical laws, and so they need information about vaccinations or pharmaceuticals in order to regulate medications. And they also make policies about public safety. For example, they may refuse to approve a building which would be built in an area prone to sinkholes. They would need to know about building regulations and how they should regulate buildings. The image to the right shows a earthquake in San Francisco in the 1980s, and if the public officials had been better educated about earthquake threats in the area, then they may have had different building regulations which would have prevented some of the damage. Another example is the Flint water crisis in Flint, Michigan, where there was lead contamination in the water, and had the people monitoring the water quality had better communications with the public officials, then they may have been able to prevent the water contamination and stop people from drinking the contaminated water. And so moving into methods, which is talking about how public relations works to educate people in science fields.
All right, yeah. So now we're going to talk about the most effective ways that scientists can communicate with the public. The communication experts working with scientists have to be very creative in the methods that they select so that the public can interpret it in the most effective way possible. There's a marine biologist and filmmaker named Randy Olson who published a book called Don't Be Such a Scientist in 2009. And this book articulates to scientists the most effective way for them to communicate with the general public. I'm bringing this up because he describes how there's been this unproductive negligence when it comes to scientists teaching people who communicate this information. And he basically says that they need to lighten up because it's heavy information, and that the most persuasive means is through storytelling. So it is very important to select figures and situations that cultivate a likable image to the general public's eyes. And that's what brings us to the three main methods that scientists have and communication experts have used, which are traditional journalism, live events, and online usage. So first is traditional journalism, and this includes articles in the newspapers where scientists can voice what they have to say in a column or section. There's also documentaries and television, which I personally like the best. A great example of this is The Measuring of the Universe. I'm sure all of us have seen this in some sort of science course. It's one of those videos that provides a significant visual example that allows users to comparatively see how big our universe is. Movies are also very similar to documentaries and television in the sense that they provide the same kind of user effect. An example is the biographical drama film Hidden Figures, which is about African-American female mathematicians who worked for NASA during the space race. Next, we're going to take a look at live events. Now, these have the ability to be a lot more informative because there is more public interaction. People can go to museums. There, people have the ability to actually see live models and ask questions to these experts. Same as with open conventions. Two great examples are the Geological Society of America, located in Richmond, and the Astronomical Society of America in DC. Even competitions are great for human involvement and interest, like national science fairs, robotics competitions, and Lego League Robotics. And lastly, they can also be communicated through theatrics. For example, the play Silent Sky, which centers on a woman astronomer at Harvard College Observatory and how she made critical contributions to our understanding of space. The third way is online usage. Now, this is probably the most efficient and easiest way for people to access information that they want. People have the ability to look up anything they want at any time. People can visit various websites. Two great ones are nasa.gov and discovery.com. I know a lot of professors actually use these websites in their classes. Online articles and live streams can also be extremely useful, as well as for sources of scientific information. Like the NASA has live coverages of their launches and their spacewalks and other mission events. Social media websites can also be a great source of scientific communication for those who just want to look up what they want. Now I'm going to pass it to Alyssa, who will discuss scientific agencies and where they communicate.
Right now, we are going to discuss where science communication experts work, and we're going to break it down into three different segments: firms, government agencies, and journal publishers. So to begin with firms, a firm is a commercial organization that operates for a process and participates selling goods to consumers. So for example, when it comes to firms, if a company was creating a vaccine, a company would go to a firm to get help in communicating what the vaccine contains, what it prevents, in appropriate language and terms for the general public. Each science communication firm serves different purposes and assists other companies with the science that must go into their respective companies. Just a few examples: the Spectrum Science Communication helps create and communicate the science behind their brands, while MedThink SciComm transforms biomedical communication into medically relevant communication. So these differ because while MedThink SciComm talks about biomedical communication in medically relevant terms, the Spectrum Science Communication gets help from the firms to write the science behind their brands. The main audiences of communications are companies that hire them for research, the general public, and other scientific firms. And the firms tend to gravitate towards metropolitan areas because it is easier for them to communicate information with a larger audience. Now I'm going to talk about government agencies. A government agency is an administrative unit of the government. And specifically, I'm going to focus on the President of the United States and federal agencies. So past President Barack Obama made very big strides within the STEM field. He ensured $1 billion in private investments from STEM education. He made sure that STEM education was now under the Department of Education. He began many traditions, such as the White House Science Fair, to honor children and to improve their world. He has collected $3 billion across 14 federal agencies and donations, which now President Trump will continue as he just signed a bill for $19.1 billion to be contributed to NASA for space research. Due to former President Barack Obama's efforts, the United States is 50% on the way towards achieving his goal he set during his presidency to have 100,000 new trained and ready to teach math and science educators by 2021. So his number one project during his presidency was called FedServe, 1 million hours of STEM volunteering campaign. So the whole goal of the campaign was to reach 1 million hours of volunteer work within the STEM field by the end of his presidency. And to help reach that goal, he brought in federal agencies that participated. So NASA and the U.S. Department of Energy provided the educators and future educators of STEM with proper training and materials. This worked hand in hand with former President Obama's goal of having 100,000 ready to teach math and science teachers by 2021. The Environmental Protection Agency created a STEM outreach program that inspires, educates, and increases awareness for children ages kindergarten through 12th grade and university students. Along with that, STEM programs have collaborated with the National Security Agency to also create programs for children and opportunities for educators to further increase their knowledge in STEM. In addition to that, there's the Committee of STEM Education, or COSTEM, comprised of 13 agencies, including all mission and science agencies in the Department of Education, to create a strategy to take new and repurposed funds to increase 5 areas of STEM, which is improving education and instruction for children aged preschool to 12th grade, to increase and engage the youth in STEM, to improve STEM experiences for undergraduate students, and to improve diversity and engaging underrepresented populations into the STEM field, which I found very interesting because in Virginia, a part of the FedServe project, agencies work in getting people from Virginia more educated on STEM. So I thought it was very interesting that this program took underrepresented populations and actually educated them so everyone has an equal chance. Because normally when we think of STEM and education, we only think of your education level. But in reality, in the past, it hasn't been as easy as that because there hasn't been diversity in the workplace. And next, we're going to talk about journal publishers, which are professionals in specific fields that publish their own works to assist into scientific communication. Examples would include doctors and other medical professionals. And also, to report the doctor's findings, a bunch of doctors actually hire PR representatives, so the scientist does not have to write their findings themselves, but they have someone that can better communicate all the information they gather. Science Communication is an international social science journal that examines nature of expertise, diffusion of knowledge, and science of technology. And a goal of journal publishers is to make journals more accessible to the public, and to do so, they have to make their journals easier to understand from just a general public standpoint and not use as difficult terminology. So that is the goal of journal publishers, to make it more accessible to the public. And now I'm going to pass it on back to Rose.
In conclusion, there are a variety of publics in science communications, but they are divided into three broad categories, those being students, laymen, and public officials. And science communications experts use a mix of print, live, and online methods in order to reach their publics in a variety of ways and to acknowledge the diverse audiences that they're trying to reach. These specialists work in private firms and government agencies, and while private firms do more with individualized campaigns to educate or reach a certain public about a particular aspect of science, the government agencies are typically more interested in general education outreach to the public. We would like to acknowledge Joshua Carius, aka T.F. Allen, who graciously volunteered his time to help teach us how to do video editing and audio editing to put all of these different audio clips together and make this video presentation. We also acknowledge the makers of the Audacity and Screencast-O-Matic software, which we use to record our voices and our presentation. And so we also have several references which we can include in the description of the video if necessary. Thank you very much.